Good morning and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar, Transform Plant Planning and Scheduling in Life Sciences. Your speakers today are Thomas Muth, Delmia Industry Director for Life Sciences, and Moss Rosen, Delmia Senior Solution Consultant.
Thank you, and welcome again, everyone, to today's webinar. In our webinar today on plant scheduling and planning, we're going to give you a brief intro and talk about some of the challenges that you are probably familiar with in planning and scheduling, specifically in life sciences. There are some nuances in life sciences that I'm sure you're aware of that make planning and scheduling, in some cases, more challenging than other industries. Also talk about some of the market in general and some of the technology trends that we're seeing companies adopt for transforming their business in the advent of, whether you call it smart manufacturing, Industry 4.0, any of those initiatives or plant of the future. And then we're going to talk about, give you an idea of what does an effective plant planning and scheduling solution look like in life sciences. What are some of the requirements that you need to look for? And we'll transition from that to highlight some of the capabilities of our own advanced planning and scheduling solutions with Delmia Ortums. And with that, we'll wrap it up, giving you some examples of companies that have transformed their planning and scheduling operations, and give you an idea of some of the ROI that's been achieved in life sciences by leveraging that solution. So with that, just real quickly, I'll give you a little background on Dassault Systems, our company. We're a scientific company. We started in the design space, specifically looking at really taking technology and leveraging it in the context of an efficient ways to market. So really combining science, technology, and art in a sustainable fashion. Right, and looking at that, so it's not just about operations, but really enabling companies to be more creative and more innovative. We're about 14,000 people worldwide. We focus on our experience being the 3D experience with our platform and brand solutions. And we have over 200,000 enterprise customers in several different industries. We focus on several key industries and developed experiences for each of those industries. So our domain knowledge within industry is very deep. And we go to market both directly and indirectly through partners as well. We have over 12,000 partners and very long-term driven. We have a majority control, and so we're able to focus on the long-term game-changing technology and software solutions that we feel will benefit you the best. So in digital transformation, we go to market through what we call the 3D experience. And the 3D experience in manufacturing is really a continuum of digital thread across several different domains. Let me first start by just explaining this compass that you might be seeing here in the middle. This compass represents the platform, the real-time experience. And where we're starting across here is 3D represents the engineering aspect of that from a digital standpoint. So engineering all processes, focusing on eliminating time and waste. The VNR stands for virtual and real, connecting the virtual world with the real world. In that case, we focus on operations. So the actual physical operations focused on productivity, synchronization, and efficiency. At the very top of it, you'll see a collaborative management process here. So we also have the platform provides a tool for collaborative work within the organization, but also outside the organization as well. And then lastly, what you see here and what will be the focus of our webinar today is optimize. This is really the information. So we're going to focus on supply chain and operations with dynamic scheduling in this case, and focus on within the plant, not necessarily the sales and operation planning, but really within the plant. So plant-based planning and scheduling. Now, today we see that plant planning and scheduling today is a must-have, especially in the context of Industry 4.0 in smart manufacturing, again, whatever term you prefer to use. But as you see here, the world is changing, and the world is changing really from mass production to customization to on-demand manufacturing. And customers, and you probably have your own experiences, have a higher degree of expectation in terms of getting answers and having products delivered. Manufacturing is certainly changing from a one plant, one product to multi-product, single line scenario. So the dynamics within plant planning and scheduling have been rapidly changing. And agility is the key, right? We're looking for on-time delivery. We're looking for fast reaction. And of course, we want to be cost effective in how we do that. So for smart factories of the future, really an advanced planning and scheduling solution is critical, very critical in the context beyond what a typical ERP planning and scheduling capability will provide. So let's talk about some of that digital transformation and just a little history of where we've been and where we're going from a plant planning and scheduling standpoint. You know, back in the mid 20th century, as you can imagine, planning and scheduling was really done on a board. We moved from there to really push manufacturing with some static tools and with MRP to start to do plant planning and scheduling, although that was still very inefficient. From there, and maybe some of you still do this today, we have Excel being used pretty much as a non-collaborative planning and scheduling solution. And we're seeing the trend now for lean taking over and the adoption of lean within manufacturing. And going forward, we're seeing really what we call a more agile approach. And this is part of what we refer to as the industrial renaissance. And here we're looking for companies adopting an agile and collaborative, and I want to stress collaborative, advanced planning and scheduling solution to properly manage their operations. And investment in manufacturing operations, as you see here, investment in planning and scheduling ranks very high on the list. And this is a little older survey from LNS Research on the top applications used in manufacturing for operations management and where their investments lie. And if you noticed, on the second on the list, obviously, is planning and scheduling and dispatching software, right? And that is very key for companies, and they're seeing significant investment by adopting a more modern approach. So you probably are familiar with some of your own challenges, but I just want to highlight some of the challenges that we're trying to solve for you within plant planning and scheduling. First, you want to anticipate how to new product introduction and be able to do new product introduction on a more rapid basis from a competitive standpoint as well as a market standpoint. Also, we see companies that are really trying to reduce quality testing bottlenecks, which can be a significant portion of the lead time within manufacturing. We talk about manufacturing and scheduling and planning. Sometimes we forget about the quality aspect and also within the lab. So the lab is part of that enterprise. And we'll touch on that a little bit later on how the lab becomes part of the planning and scheduling piece of this as well. Of course, if you're in a medical device or a complex area, you have large quantities of data. You get bill of materials. You may have complex routings and production alternatives. And you also are looking to compress lead times and gain efficiency on the manufacturing process itself. So how do you compress those lead times? Decreasing inventory is another area in which some of those challenges need to be addressed. And just synchronizing between independent job shops or independent processes and better synchronization across the board. And this just overall ensuring that you have maximum utilization of your capital equipment within your sites. So some specific considerations that you want to take a look at in planning and scheduling is really things like changeovers on maybe both reactors and packaging lines according to some of the product sequences, your quality testing, labor certification, instrument calibration, clean rooms, and looking at links between the different production stages, whether it would be from the lab to manufacturing to packaging and orders. And you can take a look at some of these others, and I'm sure, a lot of these will draw up. But these are the types of things that when we work with companies in the life sciences area that we're having to consider in providing a solution. So let's talk about kind of where we've been, a little bit of a back to reality. As planning and scheduling today at the plant level is still done in many cases with tools from the past. Now, every manufacturer is different, but as you can see here, a lot of people are still, they've gone from a static board to now using Excel, but that's still manual. It's time consuming. Obviously, it's not collaborative and not integrated, and it tends to be very static. What we're looking at and what we'll be talking about today is a better approach where we have a dynamic, real-time, advanced plant-centric planning and scheduling solution that's both dynamic, automated, contains optimization engines, allows you to do what-if scenario analysis, has certified integrations between all the major ERP providers out there, and is now a collaborative, easy, interactive user interface that is much more dynamic for the dynamic aspects that's required in the manufacturing floor. And we focus, in this case, on all levels of planning. It's a plant flow focus. Everything from both production and quality. So the quality is a part of that as well. So everything from supply chain planning, just from an aggregate standpoint, down to the detailed planning for production and control labs, as well as the detailed scheduling for production and control. And we can take that data in from your MES, your control systems, as well as LIMS. And so looking at that as from a holistic standpoint is what we're recommending as part of the solution. So when we talk about life science manufacturing and how this applies, we look at this across all the different sectors within life science, whether it's quality control in laboratory management, pharma, biopharma, as well as medical device. This tool is designed to support all of those different sectors and support the needs that are within that. And we're going to touch on that next in terms of going down in depth in the terms of capabilities. So with that, I'll turn it over to Moss.
Thank you, Tom. Yeah, so now what we'll do is start to get into a little bit more about the feature functionality and capabilities that we can provide to you in advanced planning and scheduling to make your lives a little bit easier. While transforming the plant, working with planning and scheduling, we possess 3 optimization engines that are going to make life a little bit easier for you and help you to achieve the goals that you're looking for you and your customers. From a load leveling perspective, we offer things like capacity planning and MPS. And this is where we really get into the mid to long-term approach, being able to look at things a little bit further out, understanding maybe capital expenditures and needs for capacity as we move forward in our life cycle. Then we get into more fine sequencing. This is where we start to schedule and start to look at rescheduling. So things like production campaigns and changeover management could be key to this sequencing, as well as we now have the ability to get down to a finite schedule, taking into consideration all of your various constraints and other information that's now impacting your systems. And that's more on the short term to midterm, where we're starting to look at things, to get things out the door and to be able to meet our timelines for our customers. And then finally, we get into more flow synchronization. And this is where we start to look at the various levels of our bill of material and how those are linked together. This gives us that ability to really have a dynamic planning. So if one particular operation were to slip, then we can dynamically update or replan all of the other operations that might be impacted there. And that's looking at things by linking things with the work orders and our plant synchronization. Then also considering maintenance or maintaining our order precedence so that we're producing our products in the right order at the right time. For us to streamline, we have several considerations here and things that we're working within. So from a manufacturing and scheduling perspective, we use a constraint-based model. Those constraints could be things like your machine capacities and times, your calendars, labor considerations, certifications, and any kind of critical supplies or raw materials that might be needed to proceed with a production line. This will also help us to highlight any bottleneck issues that might be creeping into our system so that we can address them beforehand versus later. We talked briefly about flow synchronization. This makes sure that we have the right parts at the right place at the right time. So we'll have no missing parts and nothing to force us to delay a particular production. We talked about cutting edge optimizations, and we'll talk more about that later. But here's where we get the chance to have the system determine what's the best approach for us from a load leveling and or scheduling perspective. Many of our customers like what-if scenarios, the ability to have unlimited simulations so that we can start to monitor these what-ifs and see what the plant would look like if we were to make these kind of changes. And like Tom was saying, we need this all in a collaborative tool so that we make sure that each of the lines can understand what the other lines are doing and have a full visualization and the ability to impact that schedule. So we were talking about digital continuity, and from a Dassault perspective, we have kind of this day in the life or this digital continuity perspective. And so looking at kind of a flow within our shop floor and our organization, we might start at the top here where we define our work plan based on our technical constraints. So we're still just trying to plan out and design our flow. Then we start to get into the linking of resources. So what machines and what people and certifications, et cetera, skills are going to be needed to make sure that we can process this particular operation. And then what we're going to focus on today is more of the setting expectations and the expected capacities and versus our demand here. And then we'll get into some balanced workload of our resources and then talking about analyzing and simulating our factory flows. And then to complete the loop here, we also want to feed back into our other systems like our dispatch boarding or our execution systems, and then closing the loop with taking all that optimized information now and putting that back into our design and our engineering. So closing that loop of all the information that we've learned along the way and making our designs now smarter and more efficient. So we'll focus today on expected capacity versus demand. So what does that mean? Well, we have to ask the question, what to produce and in what quantity to produce these in. So many of us, we need to understand really where we sit today. So we need to understand the netted demand that's coming from either our ERP, MRP, and looking for various opportunities here or looking for issues that might crop up, things like stock coverage. So if we can anticipate these material constraints ahead of time, then we're much better off and can adjust and be more agile. So on this particular screen, we're seeing the various netted demand that's come from either your ERP or from internal systems or other systems. And what we're showing here is the various needs for our company. And also below, we're looking at your stock policies, where we can start to see these particular materials coming in and in what quantities they are, and are we meeting our minimums and maxes or our target levels? And if we were to go negative, we would see some kind of other constraint that would allow us to now adjust and make some further decisions. From here, we also need to balance our work with our various labor constraints. So by evaluating various bottlenecks here that we see below, we can now determine which skills and which types of operators we might need to produce according to our plan here. On the lower section here, we see some red areas where we are overcommitted and we need some more team leaders to manage our production. By using various tools, either manual optimization or engine optimization, we can now eliminate those areas where we're short on skills, and we can move our production around so that we are encompassing and we don't have any shortages of the right skill sets. And this while adhering to all your business practices and making sure that we're not going to be late for any deliveries. Just working within our constraints here by managing that. Yeah, so we'll talk about balancing our load between resources. So this question begs, when do we produce and on which resources do we want to produce? So looking at more leveling of our operations. And here we need to look at machine capacities so that we understand there and we can actually level and move operations and orders around to meet our capacity. So here we can have the ability to adjust our machine schedule and capacity to improve our service rates. So on this particular screen, we're looking at our machine Gantt chart and we're looking at the various capacities that we have available to us. And in this case, we're seeing that we have some red areas, or we're seeing some areas where we're going to be low on resources and even overcommitted on resources where we see the bright red. So by updating our calendar, our capacity calendar, we can see below if we were changed from a 3 shifts, 8 hours a day, 8 hours shift to a 24/7 approach, we can now reduce some of those bottlenecks and make sure we fit within our capacity and our timelines, and therefore ensuring the various service rates and other KPIs are within line with our business policies and practices. Also, when we ask the question of when to produce and on which resource, we look at the capacity and load analysis. So being able to optimize that. Again, we see some capacity issues up above here, where we're seeing the bright red and other areas of red of concern where we're over our capacity. And in this case, we can see below in the graph where we're seeing, based on those various lines and machines, that we're now over capacity based on our 100% utilization. Currently, we're just looking at this in a very infinite capacity. We're just showing bottlenecks, and we don't really have a full vision of what our true capacity is. If we use our tools and our engines, we can now get to a finite capacity model, where after running our optimization engine, we've now leveled our load and now can produce much more efficiently. And here we're just down to some very fractional overages in terms of our capacity versus our load. So now our shop can operate much more efficiently and much more smoothly. Also, we talk about optimization engines. So what do those do for us? Well, they help us to find the right balance compared to our business objective and goals, and we use a configurable tool to make sure that we apply those business practices for you. Here we have a schedule that's just very busy, if you will. We can see by the colors here, we're seeing the various operations and orders that are going to be produced. Well, what we can do is run our criteria management, which allows us to define how we want the optimization engines to process which operation is going to be first and which operation is going to be second, et cetera. And so by configuring these criteria, in this case, we can see that we want to keep all of our operations within our groupings, so keeping the similar products together. We might also want to minimize our work order lead time and our operation start dates. So we might be able to start earlier, but we can't necessarily start later, and to do some other things based on the criteria. These are all a bunch of predefined criteria that you can use, and they fit 99% of our customers' needs. And so it's just a matter of now configuring and making these criteria into a rule set that when we fire the engine, that it'll take these things into consideration and do the things that you need it to do to make the plant most efficient. Also in this realm of balancing workload between resources, we can talk about setup and changeover times and even campaign optimization, which I know is a big thing within life sciences and something that we really need to take into account. So what we do is we can integrate multi-dimensional changeover times, and we can do that dynamically. So looking at the various products and looking at the changeover times, how can we reduce those times and put things together so they're more efficient when we start to produce? So here we see another scheduler or machine Gantt, where we can start to focus in on things like our various setup and changeover time parameters. In this case, we can start to see the little nubs between our operations that indicate these changeover and setup times. And in this case, we have various parameters set up that we're saying if the label changes, in this case it doesn't, we have 0 time associated. But if we change from one particular product to another, then we do have a changeover time of 140 units here. It could be minutes or hours for you, depending. And if we don't change the bottle, then we have no changeover time there. So what we do is we quickly can go through and manage these particular setup and changeover times, and use these to optimize or reduce the amount of changeover time, but still within your business rules and your business practices. Now we get into some analyze and simulate. So here we ask the question, what is the best plan or schedule to fit our business and to fit our goals here? But things always seem to pop up while we have the best plan laid out, but then something comes up like a machine outage or some kind of maintenance that came up, or maybe some skilled labor hasn't shown up today. So how can we manage and how can we react to that as well? So by showing the impact on our schedule and our production, we can also adjust it to make sure that we meet our goals, like on-time deliveries, et cetera. And we do that here by looking again at our Gantt. We can start to see a breakdown has come through maybe our MES system. So our execution system has determined that we have a breakdown or maybe some maintenance. It would automatically integrate to our schedule. And then we can start to see that we have 0.24 for that particular line, and that's what's causing this particular issue here. So then we have various options. We can use our scheduling engine to go ahead and move things out dynamically. just to make sure that we can still accomplish these things within our due dates and our delivery dates. We can also use the engine to help us manage that, or we could do manual drag and drop to rebalance between our lines, understanding how our lines are working, and we can then go through and maybe plan differently according to which lines are fully functional or which lines are maybe partially functional. And then we also have to talk about simulations. So how can we look at what-if scenarios, and then from that determine what the best solution that we need to implement and to put into production? So by using our simulation tools, we can have unlimited simulations. And what we start to see is a comparison of those simulations. And you can start to compare the various key performance indicators to see which ones are going to be best for you. If service rate is your most important task, then we would sort by service rate and we could see which ones produce the best service rate, etc. So in combination here, you're able to look and determine which plan or which simulation would be best to put into effect as we move forward. So we can guide you through this by looking at the various simulations, running our optimization, storing those simulations, and then giving you the ability to compare the simulations. And here, just taking that to kind of show a side-by-side of before and after. On the left side here, we see some green and some orange. Those are indicating advances or delays in our schedule. So we can see that we have some orange here that indicates that we're going to be delayed in January and February. So we can result in no delays by using our scheduling engine, and by adding some more shifts here, so we can determine that we might need to up by a shift or maybe work a weekend, then we can result in no more delays by just adding a little more capability or capacity. So a very simple thing to do to make sure that you're not going to be late or delayed with any of your particular orders. And then finally, I wanted to mention the integrations. We talk about that fairly often because it's such a key player in terms of our integrated systems here. So from an ERP perspective, we have many predefined, certified integrations or adapters that work with many of the most popular ERPs. But these are, again, certified, so we've worked with the suppliers of these applications to understand their technology and to match our technology and configuration to match up. We have over 150 ERP LIMS and MES connectors already built. And again, these are certified by us. And what happens is we use a visual interface configurator, which is included with the product. And what that does allow you to maintain these configurations and even create configurations by you and your teams. So it's a tool that's definitely customer focused. We can of course help you, but then once we've helped you to maybe build these integrations, then you can now maintain them as things start to change in maybe your ERP or your LIMS systems as those advance. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Moss. So let's talk a little bit about some of the ROI as a result of leveraging this type of solution. And with Delmia Ortums, we've seen significant results reported back to us from our customers. The customer benefits are in several different areas. When you look at justifying moving from maybe a legacy planning solution, or maybe you're moving your first time to a more advanced planning and scheduling solution, justifying that can be done at several fronts. And some of the customer benefits we see are across production, but also in other business areas that you are focused on and objectives. And so you can see here that you'll get significant ROI benefits, whether from cycle time, machine time, time savings overall, lower inventory. And we talk about, we're really talking about cutting in some cases for cycle time, we're cutting the lead time significantly. You're able to reduce some of the machine setup time with this type of tool by optimizing the sequencing and grouping operators' activities in a more efficient manner. So there's a lot of areas where machine setup time can be optimized through a advanced planning and scheduling solution. Reducing inventory is a significant benefit as well, as you can imagine. And that inventory reduction can be done, by ensuring that you have the right parts at the right time and are not either under stocking material or overstocking material. And then there's some of the other things where we see productivity increases just from the planners themselves, where they have greater productivity. We've got greater customer service, and overall, we're getting significant increases in returns from planning and monitoring. Now, just to give you an idea of a few customer examples here that and experiences, we have Solvay is using Delmia Ortums to leverage and support their advanced planning and scheduling within their manufacturing. Now, Solvay is a global chemicals manufacturer. They're a specialty chemical company also serving the life science industry. They have a significant number of plants worldwide, and their challenge was they had really the need to improve their shop floor performance, just in meeting customer order dates and dealing with capacity. And they also had a lot of expedites within their ordering processes where they needed to have and adjust their scheduling and planning based on urgent requests at the various plants. By implementing the Delmia Ortum solution, this company had seen significant benefits, as you can see here. So, besides the improved customer response time, they saw decreases in changeover processes or decreases in maintenance hours, and just overall the man-hour improvements were improved as well, significantly per site. And this tool's been in place with this company for several years now, and they continue to roll out. And the rollouts tend to be very short in nature in terms of from the time of rollout, and also from the time to ROI. So very fast ROI that has been achieved by Solvay. Now, another company, I can't name specifically, but a major pharmaceutical company used Delmia Ortums to help speed new product introduction and also optimize their production campaigns. As you all have your own campaigns within your business, this company was looking to optimize those campaigns to be more effective and faster to market. So in this case, it's a leading skin health focused pharma company based in Spain, and they are a significant player within that area. And their challenge, as I mentioned before, was really to optimize the production campaigns and also to link the semi-finished orders that they had as part of the process to the actual final finished product that included packaging. So here they also needed to link different processes and different areas together within the planning and scheduling tool, which they didn't have before because of the more manual nature that they had. They also wanted easy integration with their ERP system. In this case, it was SAP. So some of the benefits they achieved here is just listed below. And we've seen these types of benefits coming from pharmaceutical manufacturers on a very regular basis. Whether it's cutting out bottlenecks, having more efficient stock management, they're able to foresee a capacity overload within their simulation, and by using the optimization engines, they're also able to adjust for that, as well as by having proper visibility into the materials when they need those materials, they are also to cut back on packaging stock. So they were more of a just-in-time type of operation, and also cut down on the work-in-progress stock that also would be a part of the production. And lastly, just another global pharmaceutical company based in France. They used this to optimize their manufacturing and maintenance solutions. So in this case, this company is a world leader in human vaccines. They're one of the top 10, and they have an extensive portfolio, as you can see here, across all of the different sectors, whether it's prescription drugs, generics, consumer, and health products. And they had another challenge where they had multiple sites, but they also had multiple ERPs. So they had a need to standardize their production planning, plant planning, and scheduling across those sites. So they wanted to also make up for the shortcomings from a real-time basis that they had in their ERP standard planning and scheduling, which was really based on infinite capacity, and replace that with a finite capacity model. And they also wanted to upgrade the planners' roles across the various facilities. So they want to develop a core strategy standardized across all of their plants so that they could improve and transform their manufacturing to be more agile from a planning and scheduling standpoint. And when implementing Delmia Ortums, they found an ROI in less than 1 year, and had done so by streamlining a lot of the manual activities that were being done on the plant floor, as well as significant reduction of inventory. Because of the scale of this operation, that inventory reduction was a significant ROI and continues to be. And they also found that they were able to cut down on the cycle times of production, as well as be able to have better customer service and responding to the production campaigns as well, meeting dates. Having the collaborative aspect of the tool was important as well, because they had several planners, and that helped bring in additional expertise that could help optimize and be more efficient in their planning and scheduling, to meet their business objectives. So in summary, transforming planning and scheduling with Delmia Ortums really does these 5 things overall. Helps you meet target dates, gives you that forward-looking visibility, helps you make proactive decisions, drastically reduces lead time, reduces inventories, helps you increase your throughput and assets and utilization, as you can see here, and ultimately, saves time by digitizing that planning and scheduling process, where you might be replacing multiple Excel spreadsheets. You taking into account the shortcomings of ERP, which is typically at an infinite capacity, and really managing your business with a finite capacity and optimizing your planning and scheduling processes. So with that, we'll transition over for Q&A, and finally leave you with some points of where to contact us for more information.
Thank you, Thomas and Moss.
Yes.
We do have some questions from the audience, and we also have Matthew Baird, Delmia Senior Business Consultant, joining the panel for the questions. Our first question is, how long does it take to implement Ortums?
Sure, I'll take that one. Yeah, it varies, of course. It depends on how your business processes are already in place, and what kind of detail of information you're maintaining, either with your ERP or your MES. But typically we see somewhere in the range from 3 to 9 months, depending on the complexity. 3 months obviously being a very simple, straightforward, just kind of converting from Excel to more advanced planning and scheduling collaboratively. And then getting it to the multi-site implementations, where it might take a little longer to do the first one, but then each subsequent site would be much simpler, because now we can just replicate that type of environment to our other sites.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
The next question, why does it make sense to have another solution other than my ERP system?
Yeah, ERP systems are typically more of a transactionally based, and they're really more of a financially based system. Whereas we start to take the look of getting information from your multiple systems, absorbing that information, and then just being able to use optimization to help us get to the best plan. And we're also looking at real world events, things like those constraints we've talked about. If materials don't show up, and if people don't show up with the right skill sets, what can we do to manage that? By managing that within tools like Ortums, we can now have that real world look, and we can start to use our optimization tools to really give us the best fitted solution.
The next question is, what skills are required to develop customized solutions for clients with Ortums, and what programming language is used?
Well, unfortunately, we don't have any of the technical guys on the line, so I believe it's a proprietary language that we use inside of ORTEMS, or a proprietary flavor, but the skills are all internal. We do not open the application to external development. So in the rare case, which I would say happens less than 5% of the time out of our very large customer base, we develop what we call a user exit that we build into the algorithm that handles this specific customized piece of functionality. The advantage to that is these user exits are then incorporated into the base code, which makes them upgradable, and they continue on with the growth of the software, as opposed to a one-off implementation of a particular, let's say, non-validated external solution that gets left behind and prohibits the upgradability of the overall system.
Yeah, and I think Matthew said it best. We're an out-of-the-box solution. So we're really just doing configuration, a bunch of check boxes and things like that, as well as getting through the interfaces. And by providing a visual interface configurator, really the skills there are just being able to manage where I get data from, how I might transform that data, and where it's going to go within the scheduling and planning. So again, we're out of the box. We use various things, check boxes and criteria to help manage it and get it to your business practices. But then after that, the system can operate and do its own thing.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next question. If a customer uses SAP for planning and scheduling, which are the key factors where ORTEMS is better than SAP? Multi-BOM management can be a differentiator.
Well, yeah, so the what we call SRP, because we go beyond the typically infinite capacity MRP platforms within ERP to synchronize across all the levels of the bill of material, but we also allow for any number of BOMs or variants on a particular product, and those can be selected interactively by the scheduler or can use the algorithm to say, given the current demand scenario, capacities, staffing, what's the best version of the product to run to meet your KPIs? I would say there are, the interactivity with the planners and schedulers with the system is a bit more sophisticated than SAP. They've only come to, the Gantt chart view of the world in the last few years. And we've been doing it since we started 25 years ago. The integration to tools that are non-SAP, for instance, is much simpler than dealing with some of the necessary factors when you start hooking things in to SAP. It's important to note there that we've been a certified partner of SAP since 1994, I believe, all the versions, and right now we're the only external planning and scheduling engine that's validated for SAP S/4HANA.
Okay, thank you, Matthew. Our next question, can you provide an SRP example?
Well, SRP is a functionality that we've developed that we take the bill of material information, again, any number of levels from 2 to 22, and we use that information and schedule up and down that hierarchy so that, from a packaged finished good, for instance, and if we're talking pharma, let's say that's a package of 50 25 milligram capsules, right, and blow that back through not only the packaging and the labeling, but the bulk production of those capsules, right, the printing or blending, of those capsules in the production arena, and then actually through the acquisition of the APIs and other materials that go into that pharmaceutical product to say, oh, by the way, if you want to produce on February 28th, you need to order API based on its lead time, maybe December 1st of 2017, right? And it should be in 2 weeks later, and it'll be weighed, and et cetera, and the process starts. So it's top to bottom management across all layers of the bill of material in a finite capacity schedule.
Okay. The next question is it possible to do several scenarios, or is the standard version of the software have the real and test software?
Okay, I'll take that one. It depends on, so in the configuration and the implementation, if you're modeling your factory and you want to do simulations on that environment as it exists, you can do any number of simulations or scenarios in a single environment. Now, let's say you want to significantly change or alter that configuration. You might want to create a separate environment, right? So essentially copy everything from the real environment that you're doing your day-to-day planning and bring in, let's say you're adding a significant number of pieces of equipment, and you want to say, how does my current demand or my future demand look in terms of scheduling against that new scenario? You may want to use a separate environment, right? But for instance, if you're talking about, when's the best time to take our 2-week maintenance shutdown, or how long should we close the plant in the December holiday period? You can run those type of scenarios right in your real environment and save them off as simulations and then compare them to your actual live model.
Okay. Do we have any other questions? Okay, terrific. So thank you, Thomas and Moss, as well as Matthew, for joining the panel. Great presentations and good questions from the audience. This concludes today's webinar. If you have any questions, you can contact Layla, whose contact information is right on the slide, and we will get back to you via email. Otherwise, thank you for joining us, and have a nice day.